Well, that's the end of BAM. Just got out of the last thing on the last day. And, you know, if you haven't eaten, like, junk food, like for a couple of years or something, like if you haven't had a McDonald's burger for 2 years and then you eat one, it makes you feel really quite sick. Well, imagine if you haven't eaten one for ages and then you spend 3 days stuffing your face with them. Imagine how sick you'd feel. That's roughly how sick I feel right now. I've had all that fucking junk gender ideology flooded back into my system and I ache all over. What I've learned from this festival is that men have been wicked, men have been arrogant, men have been foolish, men have been bad, and they should change. Especially the straight white men. You can let the black men off and the gay men off because they're marginalised. I mean, it turns out black men don't really like gay men very much, and gay men don't really respect black men's religion very much. In fact, it seems the only kind of men who do accept everyone are straight, white, cis men. And it would be helpful if they had an identity that could be nurtured by a festival like this. But no, it seems we don't want to normalise straight, white, cis male identities because they're already normal. I'm at the stage where I can't even. I'm going to need to write this shit down.
To raise a feminist son, I suppose, would be my, big ambition.
More on that nightmare later. Hello. In the interest of symmetry, I'm going to try and make this video similar to the first one. Much like its predecessors, this day came and went with something of a whimper. The clip you just saw was from the very last event, looking back at BAM. I thought I'd show you this moment, because it's the first and last time I heard anyone even skate around the topic of white fatherhood.
Can you define what you mean?
By what?
Feminist. Well, a feminist son, yeah.
I guess just someone who recognises the shared project of it and his responsibility as a man who will be at least half Caucasian. I don't know who I'll have kids with.
Now, I'm not fully sure what just happened. I think he's saying he's looking forward to teaching a white man how to be a feminist. But, just as he was saying it, he realised this might be construed as racist. Hold on there, young fella, my lad. Not only would you rather have a son than a daughter, you'd rather have a white one? What kind of eugenic shitlordery is this? Now, if he was a bad guy, that's the reaction he'd be getting. A lot of booing and hissing and jeering and all that stuff I just said. For committing the mortal sin of assuming that he, as a Caucasian man, should look forward to raising a Caucasian child. Which, yes, fuck you, you KKK arch vile, or you'll never work in this town again. But this is one of the good guys. So he just gets trial by embarrassment. They're all going, oh, I suppose that is quite silly. I mean, he's white. He's likely to have a white child. Oh, come on, everyone. Laugh it out. Ha ha.
No, I'm not expecting. No. At least I don't think so. I've been on tour,
I don't know where the cringe ends and the ominousness begins. You committed the sin of entitlement to a male Caucasian child, but you had already got away with it because you said you only want a white son so you can teach him how to be a feminist. Which to these people is a noble goal. It's like capturing a wild tiger and teaching it to look after rabbits. Oh, but you see, I disagree. I'm not like the majority of this room. I don't care if you as a white man want to have a white son, but the idea that you want to have him just so you can teach him to be a feminist is one of the most demented things I've ever heard. To me, it's like capturing a domestic rabbit and teaching it to look after wild tigers. Please do not teach your children to be feminists. Either it won't work and it'll be a disaster, or it will work and it'll be a disaster. I would recommend you let your children decide for themselves whether or not they will align their identities with whichever wave of social justice is going to advance on their generation. From the center of your dial, you may think feminism is harmless and tolerant right now, but come back in 15 years and you will no longer recognize it, sir. It will have mutated into an authoritarian behemoth that is utterly alien to you. But by then it will be too late. You will be a dinosaur from 15 years ago. A dark age of brutal misogyny that no one dare speak of. In any case, the chances of you making it to your son's second birthday before you've been ditched and cucked and estranged are very slim. And only getting slimmer.
Yeah, I think to raise a son who's aware of the.
Do you know, I'm getting almost this sixth sense that you're not comfortable.
How everybody stands to gain from that, and how BAM and WOW, as we've said before, aren't these opposing festivals that are having a different conversation. It's the same conversation from different angles.
Different angles and different accents. Okay, so you got thank you. Okay, so you got two festivals having the same conversation. How many festivals are you going to have just to have one conversation? Have any of you considered actually having a different conversation? I mean, this was how you were selling this gig in your trailer. It's all about the conversations. There's loads of conversations going on all over the place. Conversations everywhere. But apparently, they're all the same conversation. This is like saying, welcome to my amazing kitchen. We have 1,000 things to eat, and they're all beans.
Being a Man Festival is space and permission for men and women to come together and celebrate and explore what it means to be a man.
You guys keep saying that. You keep framing it as permission. But to me that begs the question, why do we need this permission? Why don't we have this permission? Who on earth had the authority to take it away from us? And incidentally, how did you get hold of the authority to give it back? This is a little bit suspect. It's like, come to our amazing kitchen and we'll give you permission to eat food. Wait, what? I mean, you people believe in patriarchy. I keep saying you people, but I mean, you people I'm talking to. You believe in patriarchy theory. The axiomatic hypothesis that says men have all the power and control in society. And you, the believers of this theory, are here to bestow permission on the world's most powerful people. Permission is, by definition, something given by the powerful to the less powerful. That makes you more powerful than the world's most powerful people. And evidently what you do with this otherworldly power is you give women more human rights and you give men permission to be human. And apparently you're having the same conversation at the WOW Festival, and I suppose that doesn't surprise me. I mean, it's the same conversation they're having at He for She. The same conversation most moderate feminists are having. That's sort of a difference between moderate feminists and radical feminists. Moderate feminists want to give men permission to be human, and radical feminists don't want to give men that permission. None of them have asked themselves how they all came to axiomatically agree that they have the power to give permission to men. despite this thing they call patriarchy. It's well, at least we now know how that classic riddle ends. What do you give a man who has everything? Permission to be vulnerable. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure that's a gift. It sounds more like a kick in the nuts.
So we've talked about everything from suicide, mental health, prison, education, big serious subjects like that, things like pornography, shyness, northern soul music, gaming.
Yes, and they're all the same conversation. All with much the same conclusion, by the way. Men are spending too much time enjoying themselves. It's causing them to be depressed. They should put down these earthly distractions and talk about how sad they are and devote themselves to the people who are less fortunate, which is everyone.
We tried to explore the whole spectrum of male identity, male pastimes.
You missed men's rights. It's not a huge part of the spectrum at the moment, but it's there.
And the thorny issues that men are struggling with.
You missed out divorce and child custody. Those are huge parts of the spectrum at the moment. You probably should have brought them up. I mean, if we're talking thorns, that one's right in the fucking glands. Oh, and you know what else never came up? Fucking never mind. Dog shit kebab. Holy shit, you got B-roll of that as well. I can't believe you're proud of that shit. Shout outs to Mankind. They were there. They didn't get to talk much, but they did get some booth space, look. There you go. Some of this shit's legit. And there's not many people here, but, at least they set up. The important issues get talks and panels and whatnot. The less important issues get a booth. And maybe an appearance on a panel. Mark Brooks, for instance, of Mankind. He was on the panel about domestic violence. Behold, he's the dude in the middle.
And more often than not in relationships, it's actually the coercion and control of psychological terror, financial abuse and the isolation that's actually more prevalent often than actual violence.
Okay, so the tyranny within relationships is something which can belong to both sexes and same-sex relationships. Probably because of issues to do with masculinity and the notion of control, statistically it's much, much higher on women. And the statistics at the moment are that 2 women die every week from their partners.
There might be a lot of unreported male stuff.
That is also true.
It seems to be a theme of your presentation that you are constantly looking for the male attacker. You just have to say that.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry if it appears that way.
I really wanted to talk to that guy afterwards, but for some reason he left through the other door with some large men.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry if it appears that way. I started deliberately on a different subject in order that I wouldn't say that. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to say that. But I think that it would be wrong not to also say that there is a huge number of women who are also suffering domestic violence.
Okay, we're going to run through that again. Notice at no point did anyone even suggest that only men experience domestic abuse. No one even said that men experience it more. Mark was working very hard to keep it quite tightly within ungendered terms. And then you, Jude, came along with this.
Okay, so the tyranny within relationships is something which can belong to both sexes and same-sex relationships. But I think that it would be wrong not to also say that there is a huge number of women who are also suffering domestic violence.
All kinds of people experience domestic abuse, but it would be wrong not to say that a lot of women experience it.
Yes, Jude. Women are a subset of all kinds of people. That is a pointlessly banal series of statements you've made there, if it is to be taken as read. But if we subconsciously read between the lines, we hear what we're supposed to hear. All kinds of people experience domestic abuse. But let's not be wrong now. Women experience domestic abuse. It's a bit like a deepity, but the darkest kind of deepity. If you take it as read, it's trivial. If you take it not as read, it is the systematic erasure of the humanity of non-women. At this point, I might venture to say, Jude, that I understand what's going on in your head better than you do. Because I'm recording the parts that you're erasing. That was the Women Have It Worse card you just played. A man in the audience finally broke his silence after 3 days of this shit and man-interrupted you to say, can we please put the women worsting card away for once in this fucking festival? So you apologised politely and then you completely ignored him and played the fucking card anyway. This is what I mean. I don't think you're even doing this consciously. You don't know why you have to play this card. You just know that you have to. It's like you're allowing an enemy tribe into your territory, and you keep instinctively pissing on the trees, just to let the wrong skins know that they're all here on the knife edge of your goodwill. And everyone's like, why do you keep pissing on the trees? And all you can say is, because I love you. I don't want you in charge of a man festival, Jude. I don't think I want you within 50 yards of the concept of masculinity. Are you actually in charge of this whole kit and caboodle?
And I went to an event recently with the Duchess of Cornwall because she's the president of the WOW Festival.
Wow. Is there no escape from this infernal patriarchy?
Nobody in this room invented patriarchy.
Gloria Steinem invented patriarchy, dude. It was Gloria Steinem. It was that branch of that wave of feminism which invented the term patriarchy in its modern usage. But they didn't coin the concept, not by an exceedingly long talk. They merely rebranded something ancient. The patriarchy hypothesis is mythologically distinctive, but indistinguishable in moral function from something we used to call God and Satan interchangeably. It's everything we don't understand or don't wish to understand. I mean, it also tells us these are the good people and these are the bad people, but that's just small print. Nothing to see here. Don't write our holy books in a popular language or we'll put you on the rack. All right, I'm satiated from this meal, this appetizer, if you will, this tray of hors d'oeuvres. Let's go back to the floor and get another tray of hors d'oeuvres. What about boys? Yeah.
What I've seen has been a lot of honesty, a lot of open hearts, a lot of courage, and a lot of taboo subjects being sat with.
Really, because I've tried to cover some of the taboo subjects that y'all missed, and I'm now approaching my 4th hour?
I find it still amazing how difficult, how men find it difficult to communicate.
I agree. You said that in a rather silly and ironic way, but a perfectly charming, silly and ironic way. You seem like a nice person. That wasn't in the least bit difficult for me to say, by the way.
Too often we're in our viewpoint in our heads all the time, and it's hard for us to imagine that there are issues out there that we might not know about, and this really brings it to light.
Oh, no. no, my dear. You're a woman of colour. That means you automatically, instinctively understand where everyone is coming from. Someone hasn't been boning up on their standpoint theory.
It just made me think about
This chick's got you beat, though. Consult your stack.
how everyone needs to find that thing that can help them accept themselves as an individual.
Come to think of it, according to the wage gap, Asian women get paid more than white women for the same job. And that's something white men bad.
Showing vulnerability can be a form of strength. You know, I think a lot of people think that being a man means being strong.
Being an adult means being strong. Stronger than a child. Being a living organism means being strong. Stronger than a dead organism. Or else you die.
And people like Professor Green.
Who? Oh, shit, yeah. Oh, God, I should probably do a proper segment. The first special guest of the day was a young man named Professor Green. Now, he's not a real professor. He's a rapper and celebrity. But that's fine. I'm not a real doctor. I'm a... Fuck it, we'll go with rapper and celebrity. That'll do. I'm not celebrated for my rapping. They're separate things. Much like with yourself, Professor. Hey-o!
Especially in the industry that I'm in, because there's so much bravado. You know, we're all performers. We all have a face that we put on, however real we are as artists or whatever, or claim to be. You know, we definitely all do put a face on, and we have to, because people don't want to know about the trouble behind the scenes when they come and see you at a show. They just want to get a good performance.
This is something I do rather envy about mainstream artists. They don't have to deal with the drama. At least not within their own works. You know, obviously they have to keep the occasional finger in the public relations pie, but the gossip pages are separate from the artistic works. They don't get many fans saying, "Are you going to do a song dissing that friend of yours who did a song dissing you?" No, thank you. That sounds like something my enemies would appreciate, and I'm busy dissing them.
Not to say that I'm hard. There's a lot. I think there's a strong misconception. You know, people mistake strong for hard. Mm-hmm. You know, with all that I've been through, I must at some point have been strong. Otherwise, I wouldn't still be here. But I'm not hard. I'm quite gentle.
Oh, here we go again. One good synonym, one bad synonym. Sir, hard and strong mean the same thing in this context. They mean not weak. But strong is a word in common usage by almost everyone, whereas hard is an idiom used dialectically by men and teenage boys and cockney gangsters. It doesn't just mean violent. It doesn't even necessarily mean capable of violence. It can just mean capable of receiving violence, capable of taking a beating without breaking down, capable of taking a psychological beating without breaking down. That's why it's synonymous with strong, in the context in which we've been using it. I'll let the young man clarify it.
I think you don't have to be strong to be a man, like physically and muscle. I think you have to be strong kind of like inside.
Same goes for hard. It can mean physically muscled and stuff, but it can also mean internally resilient. So, just like it's perfectly possible to be strong and also gentle, it's perfectly possible to be hard and also gentle. So what's wrong with being hard? Other than, it's a man's word.
You know, rappers, everyone assumes we're all hard. There's always been this misconception of me, like me being hard, you know, because I got tattoos and I grew up where I did and I used to sell drugs and I had a Staffordshire Bull Terrier and I've been stabbed. I didn't stab someone, I got stabbed. You know, how does that make me hard?
Because you got stabbed and you didn't die. That's a pretty good description of something hard. It doesn't die when you stab it. It's a much better description than something that does a lot of stabbing. An armadillo is harder than a porcupine. So I'm willing to stake my reputation on that. As for the tattoos, they just sort of make your skin slightly harder, don't they? I mean, they're like scars. Well, they are scars. Scars filled with ink. And they're considered sexy, just like scars. Except, when they find out you did a tattoo by yourself, they think it's even cooler. But if they find out you did a scar by yourself, you're a loser. Wrong kind of self-harm. My bad. Should have filled it with ink. As for the murder dog, it absolutely is a display of resilience, not to mention bravery, if you live with a murder dog. A murder dog that could snap at any moment. It's like living with a loaded Magnum on the living room floor with the safety off. Like, every now and again you wake up and there's a bloody great hole in the sofa. And its innards have been scattered across the room. And you just go, ho hum, that could have been me. Fiddle-dee-dee. Oh well, nothing we could do to prevent that happening. Let's just reload this bad boy and carry on. And yeah, that's part bravery and part stupidity. But the proportions vary case by case. But yes, in summary, if you live with a murder dog, and yet the only scars you have are from needles and knives, then yes, that implies, at least superficially, that you are not only brave, but resilient. And again, when we tell people to be strong, we are telling them to be brave and resilient. Strong and hard are synonymous in this context. A strong plastic is not the same as a hard plastic, but in the human context, you're yet to differentiate the meanings. You've only differentiated the dialects. It's men, stop being hard and just be strong. And that makes no fucking sense. Unless you interpret it in just the right way. Then it means stop hanging around with the people who call it hard and only hang around with the people who call it strong. That's what language policing is about. That's what's usually behind the curtain. It's not language they're trying to police. It's people. It's whatever nice things they can take away from the bad people. Just like there was a period in 19th century Britain, I forget whereabouts, but whiskey was perfectly legal, but gin was made illegal. Because rich people drank whiskey and poor people drank gin. That wasn't alcohol policing, that was just people policing. Good old-fashioned people policing. There are people you don't like, so you find the things they use that you don't use, you find the words they use that you don't use, and you make those things taboo, and then offensive, and then eventually illegal. Let's not forget, this is a festival where we break the taboos and say the offensive things and have lots of conversations about it. Oh, except taboos like being hard or being a lad. We want to make those things even more taboo. We'd like to taboo them out of existence, please. Good sirs and good madams, what if being a lad is important to me? What if being hard is important to me? I mean, it's not. I mean, I try going down the pub with my mates and I end up crying quietly in the toilet. But the point is, it's important to me that I keep trying. I have to work fairly hard just to be a lad, but I still think it's worth pursuing. Now, would you like me to be hard and get back in the lad saddle? Or would you like me to be soft and stay at home? Your answer is already given, BAM Festival. It's a resounding be soft and stay at home, men. It's the only conversation any of you are allowed to have, but by golly are you having it a lot.
So the vulnerability isn't in the genuine vulnerability. The vulnerability is in the fear of people seeing me in that way. Why shouldn't if you can see me happy, why shouldn't you be able to see me, see me sad?
Do you know, in my experience, you actually make yourself as much, if not more, vulnerable by revealing what makes you happy. than by revealing what makes you sad. Depending on the scarcity of the thing, of course. If grass or concrete makes you happy, then you're in luck. But if you like a band or an artist that no one else likes, you will forever run a gauntlet of scoffing young music snobs telling you that you're stupid for liking it. But if you hate a band that everyone else likes, then you get to do the scoffing. And if you reveal who you find sexually ugly, you might sound like an asshole. But if you reveal who you find sexually attractive, then you're showing everyone where your button is and how to push it. How vulnerable we are to the things we find disgusting is nothing compared with how vulnerable we are to the things we find beautiful. It seems so simple, doesn't it? So simple and so true. And yet we've got billions of people running around like blue-ass flies out there, desperately trying to make it not true.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because keeping it real is one of those phrases that I think has come from the music industry.
When Steve Lamacq asked Richie Edwards if he is for real, Richie responded by taking a razor blade and quietly carving into his forearm the number 4 and the word real. And he killed himself. He never did answer the question. I think that was his point. You can't answer that question. It gets more difficult the harder you try. Some say it was Kurt Cobain who killed heavy metal. Well, that was the day Richie Edwards killed lyrics.
If you strip it back, like I think coming from where I come from in Clapton, a lot of people think being real is selling drugs, it is doing whatever else you do that goes with that. It's being masculine, whatever that means, which I guess is what we're here to try and work out and uncover.
Well, I don't think you meant to do this, Professor, but you just gave us a brand new clue. It was huge. Only 2 examples tumbled out of your spinning subconscious just now. Being masculine and selling drugs. Is selling drugs a masculine thing to do? That seems to be what you accidentally said there. Selling drugs is an expectation placed on men but not on women. Interesting. Well, once again, I have a suggestion for a panel, or perhaps just a booth, at next year's BAM Festival. Repealing the drug laws. How ending prohibition could save the livelihoods of millions of vulnerable men all over the world. Not a whiff of that at this year's festival. It's a fucking mystery to everyone. Quite a lot of young men are in prison on minor drug offences. How do we put a stop to this? Should they talk about their problems? Should they learn how to be more vulnerable? Instead of standing in dark alleyways and street corners carrying a life sentence in their back pocket, should they be more willing to be vulnerable? Hello? I have an idea. Hello? Me? Yes, hello. I have a cunning plan. Can we change the law? Can we change the law ever so slightly so that men aren't quite so vulnerable to it? Is men's vulnerability to the law a good reason to change the law? Like ever? Conceivably in any fucking situation. No, of course not. We make women's problems better by changing the law. We make men's problems better by talking about how sad men seem to have decided to make themselves.
But actually, just being real is just being honest with yourself and with everyone else. So it's being however you are and however you feel each day, which is often different.
But you never feel institutionally or systemically discriminated against as a man. Because that's impossible. That's being dishonest with yourself. That's being not real.
I think rap music gets a really, really hard time in the press because people focus on the bits which they can make look bad rather than the stuff which actually helps people come in from a situation to feel better about the situation that they're in.
Rap has quite a lot in common with gaming, doesn't it? And sport, and rock music, and all those other things enjoyed mostly by males. No matter what the content is, if it's mostly enjoyed by males and it's of no net benefit to women, then yes, the unthinking majority will assume it's a debaucherous, toxic activity performed by misogynistic degenerates. That's how things have worked since time immemorial. It's how we prevent the patriarchy from taking over. You know why Odin fucked off, don't you? It's because he killed all the ice giants. Well, you've killed all the patriarchy giants, so you can fuck off now. I don't see any patriarchy giants, do you?
Why do you think boys in particular are taught not to show their feelings?
We represent the most powerful group socially, being 3 young white men.
Because for so long, women and people of colour have had to self-censor.
And all these things, which are basically ways of saying, you know, stop talking if you're a man, you know, you're the strong one, you'll be okay.
It's this sort of old-fashioned idea of you've got to be superior, you've got to be hard.
Yeah, we need to self-censor.
It exists especially in single-parent families.
Getting affirmation from your dad as a man is possibly the most important thing of all. Do you think that's true? Bearing in mind there are so few roles that dads are given.
We're swimming in patriarchy.
Yeah, I think it probably is, yeah, because I know how damaged I am.
Oh, none of this is real. None of you are real shenanigans. I'm calling it fake. Fake and gay. Fake and gay. I'm skipping to the end.
That being said, though, some people are less emotional. Some people are. And sometimes in some situations, you do just need to be told to pull yourself together because it's not as severe as other things. You know, sometimes you do just need to be reminded that you are capable. You are competent and you can do what you need to do, so do it.
Well said. There it is, ladies. I know sometimes it feels like the world is oppressing you, but at least you got to grow up with your same-sex parent. And you have the autonomous option of your children growing up with you. It could be worse. You could be in a country where you don't have that right. Or even worse, you could be in a gender where you don't have that right.
It feels like there's very little judgment, and they're talking about issues which aren't often confronted directly as well.
No, they're not. I'm sick of this shit now. I'm sick of taking ages of this shit. There's nothing unique or enlightening or insightful about any of this, and there is a lot of judgment. Racial, sexual, and political judgment. Yeah, but it's the good kind of judgment. We reserve special treatment for the correct genetic components. It's all about the estrogen and the melanin. And what are the gays made of? Hey, what are gays made of? Ian! What are gays made of? Ian! What are gays made of? Ian! What are gays made of? Gays! No, gays! What are they made of? What are they made? Gays! Ian!
Most of the time I feel great. And then I hear someone else say, well, I go through this problem. So I find it a very useful way of actually opening up about my feelings.
See, yeah, no, fuck your feelings, sir. You're obviously male and obviously white. And straight by default until we can figure out what gays are made of. Ian!
Showing some vulnerability is an incredibly powerful, it sends a really powerful message. It says, I've got emotions, and here they are.
Okay, I'm vulnerable to social justice. I'm vulnerable to feminism, and I'm vulnerable to the capricious whims of crazy women. And I feel anxious and displeased about that. How am I doing? What if I told you I feel harassed, distressed, and alarmed? What if I told you you are making me feel harassed, distressed, and alarmed? Alright. Let's soldier on into the final quadrant here. I hope you're as tired as I am and was and under... I don't fucking...
I don't think there is such a thing as being a man.
You can't ask me to ask the question and answer it.
Okay, so the tyranny within relationships is something which can belong to both sexes. Wrong. It would be women.
Talking about the domestic violence workshop, because I was thinking about going to that, but I didn't. I got the impression from what she was saying that there was a lot of heckling that didn't go smoothly.
It seems to be a theme of your presentation that you are constantly looking for male attackers. You just have to say that.
Is apparently that was quite a lot of heckling. Well, at least it wasn't harassment. It could be going a lot worse.
A lot of the men were upset that the focus was just on female victims, not on men.
I chaired that workshop.
Yes, you did. I know. It sort of looks like from the videos I got that it was stalking Jude around the building, but I didn't know when or where she was going to turn up. No one did except her.
The domestic violence one was interesting. Actually, there were 3 panellists, one of whom was representing male victims.
1. Jude. Out of 3.
One of whom was representing male victims. And he spoke first. Was anybody else at that panel?
Yes, I was there. And Mark from Mankind did get to speak, but the point is, Jude, you spoke after him. He basically said, all lives matter, and you quickly corrected him to say women's lives matter. And Mark didn't argue with you, because I would imagine Mankind would like to be invited back next year. A booth is better than nothing. So, a dude in the audience did the arguing for him. A few hours later, and already the grapevine as Chinese whispered that story into a major heckling incident.
Actually, I don't think it did end up being about women, really. It was about the problem of masculinity.
It almost doesn't matter what you're going to say next, Jude. You just said everything. Sing that intro for me one more time.
Actually, I don't think it did end up being about women, really. It was about the problem of masculinity creating ideas that you had to control. You had to control things, which meant that either you controlled things too much and would use violence in some circumstances, or that if you couldn't control the circumstances because you were a victim yourself, you could never admit it, because that was so unmasculine as to be shameful. So that's really what we were discussing.
I don't actually recall that being the thing under discussion, nor do I understand why you think that statement works in your defence. No, I wasn't saying women are always the victims. I was saying that men's problem is they're all control freaks. Doesn't matter if they're victims or perpetrators. Their problems always trace back to their control freaks because they're men. They're always trying to control things. Are you sure about that? Are you sure men don't just want to be able to chill out and play games with their friends and their children? But their main problem is they're not allowed to because of a certain control freak in their lives. As a matter of fact, Jude, we know that's not what you were discussing, because at that point in the discussion, as I reported earlier, Mark had just got finished saying most domestic abuse isn't violence, it's coercive control.
And more often than not in relationships, it's actually the coercion and control of psychological terror, the financial abuse and the isolation that's actually more prevalent often than actual violence.
Okay, so the tyranny within relationships is something which can belong to both sexes and same-sex relationships.
What was actually being discussed, Jude, was domestic abusers are control freaks. And your memory of that is, oh, we were just talking about how men are control freaks. No, Jude. In your memory, you have conflated men with domestic abusers. Because in your mind, you cannot tell the difference. Because you have already permanently conflated men with control. Yeah, I know I've overused the swimming in patriarchy clip, but it was not an isolated slip of the tongue. This is the same thing. Because of this patriarchy in which you unquestioningly believe, you cannot and will not separate the concepts of power and control from the concept of men. You can only ever see men as addicts who are craving for more than they deserve. You cannot envisage any sector of any dimension in which men don't have enough power or enough control and might actually deserve more. That little classic riddle is in the mechanics of this whole enterprise. What do you give men? They have everything. Of course, you give them permission to lose control. And it doesn't even occur to you how weird it is that they don't even have that.
You know, if you take away the voice to a certain extent of a dominant group, because other people are saying, well, we actually now want to speak out.
You mean like feminism is starting to lose its voice? To people like me?
It can feel like you're silencing them, whereas you might actually just be rebalancing. And that, but even rebalancing feels uncomfortable. I mean, the minute when my children started saying, actually, do you mind, we're going to decide where we're going on holiday, and we're going to decide which restaurant we go to, and we're not even inviting you.
You see what I'm doing? I'm comparing feminists with parents. And you are comparing the feminists with children. I wonder which one of us is being more offensive.
It's, you know, obviously you go, I was in charge, and then you're not. But what you realise is that you decided everything before, and all of a sudden they're saying, well, you know, we've got our own choices to make.
So, Patriarchy had a daughter called Feminism. Is that right? And Feminism had a bastard son mistakenly swapped in the hospital with the men's rights movement. And now you're getting old. Let's go to our next commenter.
So I didn't go to the body image or the hair workshop, but my mum went to the body image one. And she was saying that she actually found it quite depressing because she was really feminist, really active in feminism in the late 60s, 70s. And she said basically what they hoped for was that by now women wouldn't be judged on their appearance, you know, it would just be a non-issue, it wouldn't be commented what shoes an MP's wearing or whatever else. Instead, there's more pressure on us, but it's also on men as well, so it's almost like it's getting worse for everyone. And, yeah.
Agreed. We made men more vain and women more miserable. Now everyone's vain and miserable. But also, men are now extremely miserable and women are now extremely vain. Maybe the vain people should look after the miserable people? Yes, no, yes, no. Maybe the vain people need to roll their sleeves up and get involved on behalf of someone else, like the miserable people. And that'll make the vain people less vain and the miserable people less miserable. Hello? Is this thing on?
Okay, thanks. Some people aren't going to like this, but I'm going to say it because I think we should be open and free to say what we want. And I'm interested in what the panel feel about the normalisation of homosexuality in being a man.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that is the HR guy from before.
You know, this guy works with a lot of children. I'm sure no parents are sending them for you to promote homosexuality as a normal way as what they want to be. You know, most parents want their children to produce children. Most parents want to become grandparents. So why is this festival promoting homosexuality but regularly having one or two gay people on the panel, which is 50%? That doesn't represent who most men are. I'm uncomfortable with that. You're trying to normalise it as if it's a normal thing. It's sinful. You shouldn't be promoting it as a good thing to be. You wouldn't have paedophiles on the panel saying that's normal. So why are you promoting homosexuality and saying it's not what men are about?
Like I said, the only coloured gentleman in the audience, and he's... yeah.
It's the Bible's position on it, not mine.
Sorry?
It's the Bible's position on it.
Okay,
God's position. Quite clear, but carry on.
This is bothersome, isn't it? My non-believer friends. Irksome indeed. Well, it is but a taste of what's to come from Abraham's followers. You'll appreciate this practice.
I mean, I'm like a very small percentage of this country is from Nottingham, but I've been on a couple of panels and you could talk about the gross overrepresentation.
You might say that, yes. I mean, I can't hear what you say, but you certainly could say that there is an overrepresentation of the Nottinghamshire model at this festival. That's a good joke. Too soon? Ah, too hatey. What?
I just don't think we're normalising it because it's normal, dude. Like it's
We're normalising it because it's normal. I mean, joy. How foolish of everyone. Well, hey, Guy, you know what else is normal? Straight, white, non-feminist males. Can I go right ahead and normalise straight, white, non-feminist males? Can I normalise any of the things they do that seem abnormal to everyone else? No? What? Oh, it's the wrong kind of normal! I has it! I finally got the memo, folks. It's the wrong kind of normal. I just figured out the fucking title of the universe. I'm Cyril. I'm serious things. The wrong kind of normal. Yeah, that's someone from another universe slapped a label on this universe saying the wrong kind of normal. And they're dead right, they are. That's exactly what this shit is.
Stimulating.
Open. Manly.
Territory.
Confusing.
Progressive.
Bold. Fat hope. Inspiring.
New. Positive.
And I think...
I've heard a lot of things at this year's BAM Festival. I heard about how men need to change their ways. How men need to change their attitudes towards women, towards families, towards work, towards themselves. I've heard how men need to change their priorities, change their outlook, change their opinions. I heard about how men are too entrenched in macho machismo, in this fake veneer of toughness, and that men need to stop this, because there's no good reason for being stoic, let alone celebrating stoicism, other than this unaccountable ego disease that men have, or that they learn from the men in their lives. Whoops, they don't have many men in their lives. I mean, they learned from the media, which is, of course, run by men who need to change. We've heard a lot about how men put themselves in a box where they're only allowed to wear certain things and act certain ways, and that men should stop doing this. We've heard a lot about how men want women to wear certain things and act certain ways, thereby putting women in a box, and men should stop doing this. We've heard a lot from young urban men who have achieved success despite a rather unstable upbringing. And it's a common theme to hear, my dad wasn't there for me. I didn't know how to be a man because I didn't have anyone to teach me. And the proposed solution to this is that men need to change. Perhaps that men need to stay with the families they're not allowed to see. They need to be more devoted to the women who kicked them out. Or perhaps they just shouldn't have sexual relationships with women in the first place unless they can be trusted to use the effective birth control to which they have free access. I mean, who knows? Oh, and men should be okay with being gay. If they're racial minority community usually isn't okay with it, with you being gay, then the men need to change. Because the only way to change anything is to get men to change. I keep listening to all this thinking, I'm sure the next topic will be about how men are doing things right. Men need to keep doing what they're doing. Alas, the general theme did not change. I waited for someone to at least say as an aside, or at least suggest that perhaps some change needs to come from other people who aren't men. A term that keeps coming up is hypermasculinity. Men try too hard to be strong and tough and unemotional. And I have to wonder, is this what they talk about at the WoW Festival? Do they talk about hyperfemininity? Do they lecture women on how they try too hard to be weak and vulnerable and over-emotional? And perhaps this is having a negative effect on their families and society and themselves? Is that the moral of all those stories? That women are putting themselves and other people in a box and they need to change to suit those other people? Do they talk to women and girls about achieving an identity through the way they treat men and boys? That would be the appropriate balance to a festival like BAM. There's a lot of talk about gay acceptance and racial acceptance and religious minority acceptance. There was even a 2-hour talk on fat acceptance, just for man. But there was no talk on macho acceptance. There was no talk on tolerance towards stoicism. There wasn't a trace of a talk on white acceptance. I get the distinct feeling these things have been declared the enemy. And did we get into the subject of pornography acceptance? Or video game tolerance? Or drug and alcohol acceptance? On the contrary, the subjects we are to address are pornography addiction, and video game addiction, and of course drug and alcohol addiction. And the solution? You guessed it! Men need to change. Because the reason men get addicted to these unacceptable things is, of course, men. Men get raised by women and taught at school by women, and then they get their children taken away from them by women. And then when they get addicted to these evil, intolerable pastimes like gaming and pornography and any kind of intoxication, we all need to ask, what the hell is wrong with men? Why are they so obsessed with activities that don't benefit women? You should be expressing your feelings, as long as those feelings please and sparkle. Okay. I feel like I've been screwed over by the women in my life. That is what no one is allowed to say. Why are you depressed? Why are you suicidal? Why are you unemotional and always on guard? The acceptable answers are because of the men in my life, because of the men who are not in my life, and of course because of society. As we know by now, when you take because of society and unpack it, you get because of the people who are responsible for society. Namely, straight white males. We've heard from men, young and old, gay and straight, black and white, who feel helpless and powerless. Men who are willing to express this to large audiences. And when they do, they are told that men should express themselves more. And that men need to change. They need to take that feeling of helplessness and pull themselves out of it. Perhaps with the help of other men. Oh wait, those other men also feel powerless. And they're also expressing it, by the way. It seems men on the whole do feel vulnerable and are ready and willing to express it. And what do we do to protect men from the vulnerabilities they express? We tell them to be more expressive about their vulnerabilities. We never actually help. You know when you're getting sucked into a whirlpool and you can't tell which direction is up anymore? Not a lot of people live to tell that tale. It feels like this whole humanity thing could have been a whole lot easier if we didn't keep making this one lazy mistake. Anyone get that haunting feeling that we're going to destroy ourselves and the last humans on Earth will die still believing everything was men's fault? And that'll be it. Perhaps the only intelligent life anywhere in the universe snuffed out with no accurate record of what actually happened. Except for the amassed chunks of animated silliness beamed out into the cosmos by the space lappers. Happy holidays. We've fallen down a pit.
Why aren't you moving forward?
We can't, we fell down a pit.
You need to be open and honest about your situation.
We honestly fell down a pit.
You need to express the way you feel about that.
We feel like we need to get out of this pit.
Have you tried working together? Instead of fighting each other like you men always do, maybe you can learn gymnastics and form a human pyramid.
I mean, we can try. Quite a lot of us are dead and dying, though. Could you guys maybe get
Maybe you could make a rope?
Maybe we could make a rope.
Yes! Instead of destroying the earth like you men always do, maybe you could get into arts and craft. There are plenty of minerals and tree roots down there. Maybe you could fashion a makeshift rope and use it to climb out.
We'd have to tie the other end to something. Do you suppose when we fashion this rope, we could throw it up to you and you could catch it and maybe tie it to a tree?
Oh my God, you're always blaming women for your problems. This is what's wrong with men. Don't you realise that women have been in a pit since the dawn of time? Now you stay in that pit, crammed together with other men in a small space with no food and no sleep, and don't you dare start fighting with each other. And hurry up and get out of there. You need to help us dig another rapist trap.
I knew it! I don't know what it is. I don't know. This isn't even entertaining anymore.